Okay, we'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, September 26, 2023. Madam Clerk, have we met all the noticing requirements? Councilman Newland, would you like to read the land acknowledgement?
Thank you, Madam President. We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Here.
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 I'd like to ask everyone to rise, and I'd like to invite the honor guard to come forward. Okay, you may be seated. I'd like to cede the floor to our chief.
That's okay. I'll move on your way. Thank you. And you didn't have the mic on before, so. Yes, I think everybody did. And it's really quite my honor to administer the official oath of public office. This is for the state of New Jersey, County of Mercer. And when we get to the portion, you will all please raise your right hand. And when I get to the point portion where I say state your name, you'll state your own names. Okay, thank you. So I will start. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state, under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of Probationary Patrol Officer according to the best of my ability. So help me God. If my colleagues like to- You're done, I think.
Yeah.
You're done.
Okay, Matt, do you want to grab a couple pictures? Okay. All right, great. Congratulations, everyone. We're going to get on with the rest of the meeting. So I would invite you all downstairs to take pictures with the department and with your families. And the only thing we would ask is if we could clear the vestibule area after the door is shut. That would be great because the meeting will continue. Congratulations. And remember, you're all part of our family now. Oh, terrific. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, great. Really, Daniel?
Right, we're going to get started again. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Leticia, second David, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes passed. Announcements and reports. I'm wondering if any council members have announcements or reports, and after that, we'll ask for staff reports. Michelle?
Thank you. A couple quick announcements. The Hillside Park new adaptive playground ribbon cutting will be October 9th at 4 o'clock. So everyone's welcome to attend that. Registration for the rec department winter youth basketball will be opened on Monday, October 2nd. And that's going to be held at the Hun School instead of at the university this year. And just a reminder, everyone hopefully knows already that this Thursday at 4:30, right here at 400 Witherspoon, will be the 10th anniversary of consolidation celebration. So look forward to seeing everyone come to that. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Deanna, I believe you had some reports for us.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Just a few short announcements from engineering and infrastructure operations. First, a reminder to everyone that on October 21st, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. will be the Shred Fest. This is where residents can come in and recycle and get rid of various items. More information is available on our website. This is taking place at the parking lot for Westminster Choir College, located off of Franklin Avenue. We also have currently have registration open for our food scrap drop-off program. The registration is open until October 20th. Residents are encouraged to sign up. We will be allocating space in the program through a lottery. But more information again on that is on our website. We have members of Sustainable Princeton here tonight with us, and they have successfully helped the municipality of Princeton achieve a record 675 points to silver level certification with the Sustainable Jersey program. So thank you, Christine and Jenny. And lastly, if people have been around the building lately, you'll notice that we have, thanks to Taylor Saputer, our arborist, and our tree crew, we have replaced some grass areas in front of the building with native and non-invasive trees and shrubs, just trying to become more sustainable and environmentally friendly with that improvement. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to give the floor to the chief for his monthly report.
Thank you, Council President. So for tonight, I have the August police report for you. The August report was highlighted by Community Night Out and our Youth Academy, which were both hugely successful. By way of just a general update, the police department recently met with the administration at the charter school and had a very productive meeting related to traffic, school crossings, et cetera. And the result of that meeting, there's some intersection. There's an intersection where we're going to paint the lines and make the crosswalks more visible. In addition to that, we continue to monitor the new school crossing assignment schedule and times. And I'm happy to say that it's proved to be a big success thus far. We've studied each intersection since school began, and we'll be adjusting the afternoon times at 4 of the locations: Franklin and Hamilton, Franklin and Witherspoon, Chestnut and Hamilton, and Wiggins and Moore. What our study identified that specifically that those intersections in the afternoon crossings, the bulk of the students were crossing later. So we've adjusted the crossing times at those specific intersections from 3 o'clock to 3:30. We adjusted from 3:10 to 3:40. And we believe that will definitely enhance the safety at those locations and satisfy our intentions as well. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to ask the head of Experience Princeton, Isaac Kramer, to come up and give his report.
Excellent. Thank you, Your Honor. And once again, Mr. Purcell's proved how he's indispensable to Princeton. Otherwise, I would stand up here with my folder choir style. So thank you, Jim. Quickly, I'm pleased to report some things we've worked on over the last 30 days. We now have a professional team that's in place managing our social media, also our graphic design. So everything you see us putting out now, it's going to have that polish that people really expect and represent both the organization, but our members and our partners, including the municipality, very well. And coming up is our annual report. I'm very excited to share that shortly with you. We supported the outreach for 3 municipal events: the master plan listening session that had 22 businesses together in a room. Excellent, more than an hour and a half conversation. Very grateful to Justin Lesko and all the people who attended. The Witherspoon parking, we had a good focus group meeting there, talking with many staff members, several of the businesses on the street, and we left with a good sense of shared purpose from that meeting. And coming up tomorrow, we have our outdoor dining call, so we hope to expect more of the same. But I think it really speaks to the good coordination and communication that's happening right now. Additionally, we were supportive of the 10th anniversary of Consolidation event, helping with some of the banners to get that out, also getting the word out. Several of the restaurant specials. I think it's just one more way in Princeton we're showing how supportive we are of businesses and how that factors into being just a thriving place for everyone. I'm pleased to report that we are continue to work on a T-Mobile grant that's due in 2 days, focused on benches and seating for people. We really heard the comment about more places for public seating in town. So we'll be asking T-Mobile for $50,000 to support that. And I'm also pleased to report last Wednesday, our board officially approved our annual work plan at our board meeting. So that gives us a very clear sense of purpose and direction for the year ahead. So what are we working on the next 30 days? We have a volunteer continuing to work on allowable uses, giving input to the municipality. We're signing businesses up for the Experience Princeton e-gift card. You might remember we came with a different name before, but we decided what better name for our digital gift card than Experience Princeton, because it really captures, what it's all about and what we want people to do. So customers will be able to buy the card to use in local stores, and we're actively signing businesses up. We have now until October 15th for businesses that want to be in the ad campaign to sign on. And last but not least, for the Halloween parade on October 27th, we're partnering with the Arts Council, and I'm really pleased to report one of the things we're bringing new to that event this year is a mobile selfie station. So we're going to really make it kind of fun, adding to that event. So excited about that too. Last but not least, one big item for all of you to know about, and anyone who's listening, I'm really pleased to report that our organization since the start of the year has logged 4,042 volunteer hours. And I can tell you those are valued at $128,535. So if you think about all the money coming in, all the money going out, it's really the volunteers and the hard work that they do that it's irreplaceable. We can't do what we do without them. I'm also pleased to share on October 17th at 7 p.m. we'll do our first volunteer training at Tiger Labs, which is at 300 Witherspoon Street. And it's just a great way to learn about the organization and find opportunities to volunteer and get involved. With that, that's my report. You're welcome.
Very impressive.
Thanks, Isaac.
Mia, I just had a comment.
David?
I just wanted to mention, Isaac, in light of the call that's happening tomorrow to talk about the outdoor seating,
Sure.
I had lunch today at Mahmoud's
Oh,
at one
wonderful.
of their outside tables. And I just want to say that the way that the sidewalk dining is working on Witherspoon right now, for me, is perfect.
Excellent.
The identification on the umbrella was great, but I was trying to picture if areas were enclosed with fences or whatever, and I just think it would be a detriment to what's going on there. So I'm not going to be on the call, but if you can represent that point of view, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely, I know with staff here that we hear the comments. I'll just share with you, I think Mamoons is really an example of one of those dynamic local businesses that goes the extra mile and really looks out for their customers and really cares for them. So we're so grateful to be working with Mamoon, fourth generation, I think, with the business. And likewise, we found staff so helpful and supportive as we were trying to conceptualize how best to use that space. So your feedback's very helpful, and we're appreciative of it.
That is hard-won praise. Okay. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Are we able, yes, we do have access to the outside world now. Wonderful. Would anyone in the room have public comment for items not on the agenda? Nope, seeing none. Anyone on Zoom have comments for items not on the agenda? Going once? No. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment for items not on the agenda portion and move on to our work session. Let's see. Okay, so our work session tonight is on regulations for bicycles and a whole variety of other e-vehicles, etc. Deanna and Jim have a presentation for us. Take it away.
Thank you, Council President. We're just waiting to see if it will be projected on the screen.
We're on the edge of our seat.
Excuse me. again. All right. Now we're cooking. Okay. Tonight's work session is about bicycle and other devices. If you recall, last fall, we worked on an update to an existing ordinance, municipal code chapter B8. We had found at the time that there were some items that were missing out of how we described streets where sidewalk riding by wheeled devices were prohibited. So last fall, we went through and we made the correction to correctly identify those locations. Upon further review and interaction with the public, we found that potentially there's other pieces that our code has missed, mainly because our code really is dating back to 1994 substantially. So the Princeton Municipal Code related to bicycles is located in two different sections. One, the former Borough Code, Chapter B8, establishes rules of operation. In the former Township Code, we had regulations which establish bike routes and bike paths. Tonight, we are specifically really only going to be talking about Chapter B8 and the rules of operation. We look forward to working with the Pedestrian and Bike Advisory Committee in the future to look at bike routes and bike paths and how those should be ordinanced and designated within our municipal code. And it may be, as we work through the process with our attorneys, that becomes a subsection of our streets and sidewalks ordinance rather than a standalone item. So that piece, like I said, is not going to be discussed. So our existing Chapter B8 defines different types of wheeled vehicles. It does lack any definition about scooters, e-scooters, e-bikes, any electric personal devices. It does establish, like I said, where there is certain prohibitions for sidewalk riding in the CBD. It does already have prohibitions about motorized bicycle riding, which I think is the Class 3 electric device. And then it also just restates state law as to the operational rules for bicyclists, specifically on sidewalks. So with that, this is just a graphic example of what we currently have in the code for the prohibition of wheeled devices on our municipal sidewalks in the CBD. And as noted here, electric bikes, scooters, so non-electric scooters, as well as electric scooters are currently not prohibited. Yet skateboards, bicycles, and rollerblades are prohibited. So, as I said, our code really went into effect in the 1990s. As devices have been created, the laws at the state level are advancing. So in 2019, the state passed this e-bike and e-scooter law. And what it regulates is that it leaves to the discretion of a municipality as to whether or not the municipality wants to allow e-bikes and e-scooters on sidewalks, as well as bike paths. So, but it does indicate that they shall not be used on a natural trail unless the municipality decides to allow for that. So it does, though, indicate in this guidance that these types of electric devices should not be ridden on sidewalks. But again, it's up to each municipality and county to make that final determination and put something in an ordinance if they would seek to do that. We also, somewhere, I think, Jim, you're missing a slide here. In 2022, there was also a safe passing law that went into effect, which protects those wheeled users of not motor vehicles, that if they are operating within a road space, that the vehicles shall maintain at least a 4-foot separation from those devices as they are operating on the side of the roadway. Oh, wait, you don't have my latest update here.
That's the one that you emailed.
Okay, sorry. We had some updates on this. So I'm going to just kind of skip around and go through here. So New Jersey bike regulations as well that are in effect for bike operations, specify that you should have front and rear lights, that there are helmets requirement for users under 17 years of age. There's audible signal requirements, that the bike should have either handbrakes or some mechanism to brake. Operators shall have the feet on pedals, hands on handlebars, and as one rider per seat. So, we all know that that's not always the case on bicycles, but state law states one rider per seat on a bicycle. And when that bicycle is operating on the roadway, they do have all of the same rights and duties as a motor vehicle driver. They are supposed to be operating on the right side and travel no more than 2 abreast when traffic's not impeded. So just wanted to give a refresher of these requirements. Also, just as background, Princeton University also, in keeping with updated state regulations and considerations, from their own risk management, put into effect an EV policy in August, which stated that within that red zone of the campus, that these personal electric devices should not or cannot be operated between Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they also strongly discourage the use of these on roadways such as Alexander and Washington Road. So this is a lot of background.
Sorry to interrupt for a second.
Yep.
I just want to mention, because it was a little unclear in the university policy, but they do allow the PEVs on the roadways on campus. So Ivy Lane, Elm Drive, those kinds of places, even though those are within the red zone. I just wanted to make sure people understood that.
Thank you. And they also allow non-electric devices to be used on campus
Throughout the
during this
campus.
prohibition time. So again, as we did more research into what's the current state of the situation, what the laws are, we also looked within New Jersey and elsewhere. So we found a couple of examples. It was very hard to find examples, but there are a couple of examples in New Jersey where West New York, New Jersey, and Secaucus both established some thresholds and some prohibitions for bike riding on sidewalks, e-bike and e-scooter riding, to be clear. And that states that persons that are 13 and younger are permitted to ride, but not older than that. And they also had prohibitions within their business district as stated here within certain timeframes. They also in Secaucus went a step further to state that bicycles, low-speed electric bikes, and low-speed scooters weren't allowed in public parks. So it's just to give you a flavor of how some municipalities are starting to address this. We also looked elsewhere in the region. New York City and Pennsylvania have both put a 16-year-old limit on persons using e-bikes. And New York City also indicate that they must operate on under speeds of 15 miles an hour for e-scooters, and that they could both e-bikes and scooters can be on roads which are under 30 miles per hour. So again, a lot of background for you tonight. What our question is, yes.
Deanna, just one more clarification. So you're saying in New York City that e-bikes and scooters cannot ride on roadways with a speed limit higher than 30 miles per hour? That's
That's what I find on their website.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's fine. When I read it, it wasn't clear to me if the scooters and bikes could ride up to 30 miles an hour or if it
No,
was the roadway.
it's
Yeah.
the roadway posted speed limit. Yes. So that's kind of a review of current legislation and current regulations. Just now to talk about the actual devices themselves and some of the scientific information that's coming out about safety. E-bikes are typically twice as heavy as a non-motorized bicycle. And they're finding now that e-bike related injuries are 3 times more likely to involve a crash with a pedestrian compared to just a standard pedal bike. Scooters actually too have less of an injury rate. It's really the e-bikes that have that highest crash rate. And in Princeton, our sidewalks are typically 4 feet wide. We are starting to replace those. We've upgraded our standard to be 5 feet wide. So they're pretty narrow. Even now with 2 people walking next to each other, it's very hard to kind of fit in that same space. And we do, because of the prevalent street trees that we have, the grade is not always consistently without trip hazards. So all of these things impact a user's ability to safely traverse our facilities. In terms of just operational speed, if a bicyclist is operating at 20 miles an hour, it takes first time for somebody to understand that an obstruction may be in front of them, and then to actually take evasive action to slow the e-bike down. So it's about 40 feet of distance that the bike could potentially travel between when the rider first sees something and when they can actually stop, if they are traveling at that 20 miles an hour speed. So again, these are all thought processes that we have when we're looking at the public health, safety, and welfare. We understand that, e-bikes, e-scooters are really a great opportunity to get out of single occupancy vehicles, and that the use should be promoted because it does support a lot of our climate action plan goals. We just want to make sure that council has all of the background to consider if any changes to our existing regulations need to happen. Right now, like we said previously, the current regulations only prohibit wheeled devices on certain sidewalks in the CBD. One question for council is, do you want that to be expanded to include e-bikes bikes and e-scooters as well as scooters, because right now scooters are not prohibited. So that's one question that we'd like council to weigh in on. Another question is in terms of our, so we had two requests. Let me back up. We have two requests for consideration. The code currently does not include the map that we showed previously where we have prohibitions from sidewalk riding. We would like to put together an ordinance amendment to include that map so that when the public, if they ever go to actually look up that information, they have a visual representation. So that would be one amendment that we ask for. There's also within the current code a section on penalties, and it has a specific provision about persons in our community that are under 17. And I think we would like to, in our amendment, to remove that. Police have a very effective practice in working with minors in the community. And so we don't think that we need to have any special penalty text in our code related to bicycles and other devices. So from a staff perspective, we're asking an amendment just for those two things, to add the map and to remove the penalty for minors apart from what currently takes place. For council questions, like I said, is do you want to add electric personal devices to the prohibition for sidewalk riding in town? And are there any other changes that council, based on your concerns and your constituents' concerns, want us to consider before we bring any sort of an amendment to you?
So I just want to say two things. One, we have two members of the governing body absent tonight, both of whom have strong feelings on this. I don't know if you were wanting firm answers to, if those were rhetorical questions, or you wanted the end of this work session for us to provide you with answers. If so, I'm not sure that, I mean, I think we can discuss that, but I think we all, this is a really complex topic. And I just want to say for everyone watching and participating, this is an example of the balancing act that we have to often exercise on many issues like the dining ordinance, and it's complex and there are risks and benefits and different people who are both positively and adversely impacted. And I think tonight we had really envisioned this about hearing from the public rather than necessarily hearing. I think we can hear from one another after we hear from the public. It sounds like you both, that two members had something to say, but I do want to get to public comment pretty quickly. David?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, actually. The first one is for Chief Bucieri. And, you know, I've heard speculation, I guess, that speed limits for wheeled, you know, for bicycles, for PEVs are difficult, if not impossible to enforce. And yet I notice the New York City ordinance has a speed limit for scooters of 15 miles per hour. So I wanted to get your sense of the value of putting speed limits for these vehicles into an ordinance.
Yeah, I think from a practicality standpoint, the police department would not support that. I just think that enforcing the speed of these e-devices on sidewalks would be difficult, to say the least, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I don't think there's a practical sense that our women and men would be out running radar on the sidewalks. If I'm being totally honest, I think that would be challenging, to say the least.
Thank you.
Michelle?
That was one of my questions. We're really in a quandary because we don't have the bike infrastructure and the bike lanes to prohibit it throughout town. And I think that having this map and the PEVs be prohibited in the CBD along with, the other bicycles that we have, I mean, that seems to be, a first step that would be practical. But in terms of the whole town, this is transportation. I mean, we want to move away from a car-centric town, and this is people's mode of transportation, e-bikes, and we just had a wonderful e-commuter fest that Sustainable Princeton put on. So how do we reconcile these narrow streets that we have, that we would like to build bike lanes, but it's just not feasible, and there's some really heavy traffic on some of these streets. So looking at some of the regulations, I was going to ask about the speed and how to regulate that. I was going to ask about, is there a direction on sidewalks? Like, are you supposed to ride in the same direction as the traffic on the side of the road if you're on the sidewalk? I'm just going to throw these questions out. You don't have to answer them all, but if the 4-foot separation is for the road, would we also, maybe there can be some courtesy things that are set up on sidewalks, so that, this is feasible, because I just don't see how we can build the bike infrastructure that we need to accommodate throughout town this the transition to using e-bikes and e-scooters for transportation, which a lot of people do, and their bicycles as well. So those are my comments. I think the couple of questions you ask are pretty simple ones to answer tonight, but I think that the long term, what to do with our sidewalks in town is it's a big quandary for us. So I'm interested to hear the public now.
That really sums it up, Michelle. Thank you. Leighton?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the people here. Thank you to the public. First, I want to acknowledge our Chief of Police and our dynamic engineering team. I had conversations with Chief Boucher and also with Deanna and Jim. Chief Boucher, we talked before the meeting today. I spent time with Deanna and Jim this afternoon in the office. So I want to share some information with you, and I want to come at this from a perspective of opportunity versus ordinance. I also want to say that my mind has changed since I initially came in here today, because my position was that what I'm going to share with you would be a starting point. But after speaking with the chief and our engineering department and listening very carefully, I realized that indeed we do need some rules. But my feeling is we don't necessarily need an intentional, vast rule system for a mode of transportation and mode of transportations that are only going to grow. We here in Princeton, we used to have 2 cars for every unit of housing built. Now we have a half a car for every unit of housing built. Why do we do that? Because we want to be less car-centric. Well, if we want to be less car-centric, we obviously are moving everyone toward more modes of transportation. And my feeling is, if we're extremely restrictive on something that we're really asking people to do for sustainability, climate change, and fast forward thinking sustainability, that it kind of feels like we're shooting ourselves in the foot with smart growth and a vibrant and energetic future. What a novel idea would be when you have a problem to ask a community to help solve a problem, to work with you to help solve a problem, to give the problem you have back to the community and ask them to help you solve it. What I thought about was, a lot of times, and this is not magic, and what I'm going to share with you may not work, but I think it's something we need to try. Have you ever had a problem and did nothing at all about it and turned around in a week or two and the problem was gone? Well, just think about that for a minute. Here I go. Work with me and please just try to consume what I'm going to share with you. Try to think out of the box. A novel idea, asking the residents of Princeton to help solve a problem and build community at the same time. Building community through kindness, an alternative approach to regulating personal electric vehicles in Princeton. Princeton, a growing small city with a unique charm, is faced with a dilemma: how to accommodate the increasing use of personal electric vehicles while preserving the close-knit community atmosphere. Instead of resorting to strict ordinances and enforcement, I propose an alternative approach that hinges on trust, respect, and kindness. Let us embrace a novel idea, a kindness campaign that encourages Princeton residents to respect each other's personal space as we navigate our beautiful town. As Princeton evolves, the central business district becomes a focal point of activity. While increased PEV usage may pose challenges, it also presents an opportunity for our community to come together. We can tackle these challenges head on, not through more rules and fines, but by fostering a culture of mutual respect and understanding. Trust in our neighbors. Rather than assuming the worst in our fellow residents, let's trust that seniors on scooters choose sidewalks not out of disregard for the law, but because they may feel safer there. Trust that their age will dictate their vehicular behavior and that their intentions are rooted in personal safety, not recklessness. The kindness campaign. Imagine Princeton, where kindness is the norm, where residents and visitors alike willingly protect each other on sidewalks and roads. The kindness campaign encourages this vision. It is a call to action, an invitation to make Princeton a shining example of community building through empathy and understanding. Respecting personal space. The heart of the kindness campaign lies in respecting personal space. Whether one travels by foot, bicycle, electric bicycle, scooter, unicycle, skateboard, hoverboard, or rollerblades, we all share the same streets and sidewalks. Let's acknowledge the unique challenges each mode of transport presents and adapt our behavior accordingly. A paradigm shift. By embracing kindness, we aim to shift the culture and paradigm of Princeton. Instead of relying on top-down regulations, we empower residents to take responsibility for their actions and to consider the well-being of others. This shift can lead to stronger bonds among neighbors, creating a more harmonious and connected community. In conclusion, Princeton's growth presents a unique opportunity to build community through kindness, trust, and mutual respect, rather than burdening our town with more regulations and enforcement. Let's embark on the kindness campaign. Together, we can make Princeton a place where residents and visitors alike protect and support one another as we enjoy all the beauty our town has to offer. Let's choose kindness as our guide, forging a path toward a brighter and more connected future for Princeton. I'm going to yield back in just a brief second. I do want to reinforce what I started by saying, that I did listen carefully to our chief of police, who I respect. He's dignified and very knowledgeable, and he did back me up a little bit with what I heard. But what I want to share with you is if you have a child and you're disciplining a child, you don't start by taking food away from them or putting them into bed early or spanking them even, which is never recommended. You give him or her a timeout. My message is, before we get heavy-handed on a lot of rules and regulations, and just in this small amount of time, you heard some of the questions my colleagues had. This is a very convoluted and complex situation. And the growth of PEVs are only going to get bigger. Yes, we do need some regulations, but let me ask you this. Do we really want our police officers to be spending their time following kids on scooters on sidewalks? They have more important things to do. And the enforcement, the fines, you got to go to court now. We burden our municipality. My point is, let's try to give a problem to the good people of Princeton and give them the opportunity to solve it. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Leighton. Leticia?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just say one more thing?
No.
I want to welcome. Yesterday, I had the great opportunity to spend time at Princeton University's campus talking to some young people who are in a class. I'm going to get the name of the class wrong, but they're studying municipal government. And they're kind of addressing and asking the question about municipal government. Is it real or is it drama? Is it art or is it science? So I want to thank you all for coming out. And I just want to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed the time we spent together yesterday. And like I said, I hope you invite me back. Thanks. And thanks for coming out and being a part of civic engagement. Now I really yield back.
And I can actually answer that question. Municipal government is tragicomedy.
Okay, well, really, how can I follow that? But I actually do not have much to add to what the comments already made, except to say that for some of our residents, you know, whether it's bicycles and now electric modes, personal devices, that is their only form of transportation. And some of them are even coming from other areas such as Montgomery and Kingston. So I'm very concerned about any policy that we may be considering that may have unintended consequences for those residents. So I want us to be really very conscious of that and to take them into consideration.
Thank you, Leticia. David?
Yeah, I know how to follow Leighton. Leighton, I'm accused frequently of being rabbinic. And I think you just gave a better sermon than I've ever given. I do have a few things. I don't know which to do first. I have a few questions for Lori, who's here as the chair of PBAC. We all got an email suggesting a code of conduct approach to this issue from PBAC, and I have just a few questions. And then I also have some questions really for council to think about and a couple of points that I want to make.
I just wanted to say the letter from the Princeton Bike and Advisory Committee that Councilman Cohen is referencing is in the agenda packet for members of the public who would like to refer to that. It is available online. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Lori, if you're willing to come up to the mic. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why you get paid the big bucks. So there are just a couple of the guidelines that I was curious about. One is that there's a bullet point saying that people under 14 can ride on sidewalks. The implication is that people over 14 can't ride on sidewalks, but that didn't seem to be the gist of the entire letter. So I'm curious what that point was meant to convey.
Right. I think we were asking that, anyone who felt that they needed to could ride on the sidewalk. But also a point was that children under 14 really should not be asked to ride in the street, even if they're on an electric vehicle, because they don't have the coordination and the reflexes and ability to make good judgment on the
Okay.
street. And we would definitely want them to not be prohibited from the sidewalks.
Okay. A second question. You had a bullet point that bicyclists should dismount for vulnerable users, young, elderly, wheelchair. And I'm curious, how can you tell whether a pedestrian is vulnerable or not, especially when you're, 50 feet away on a bicycle? And wouldn't it be safer to sort of say, anytime, at least if you're on a 4-foot wide sidewalk, that really you should dismount to go past a pedestrian, because there's no telling
Mhm.
who's vulnerable and who's not.
Right. Right. And I think maybe the point could just be that you'd be asked to slow to the speed of the pedestrian or, whoever's on the sidewalk, somebody with a stroller or a wheelchair, that you're slowing to their speed and passing carefully or dismounting if that's necessary to pass safely.
And the last question is, you recommended a speed limit on the sidewalk of 10 miles per hour. Is that coming from somewhere in particular? I mean, I feel like 6 miles an hour would be safer. But I don't know if it's evidence-based or just a gut feel.
So we're
that-
trying to make recommendations, not write the ordinance. So, I mean, that wouldn't be for us to decide what the ultimate speed limit would be. So I think that was just a suggestion. Is 10 miles good? Or,
So-
if it needs to be a little, so we weren't trying to dictate
Okay,
the speed, but just suggest that a speed could be set.
Ah,
To
okay,
follow. I have
so-
seen that on pathways in other communities for like 10 mile an hour or even 12 or 15.
okay, and
depending
I
on
guess
the-
that,
Depending on the width of the path as well.
yeah. And I guess that leads to the last question, which is, it's, the letter was titled "The Code of Conduct." Are you suggesting that actually the kinds of suggestions that are in the code be codified? Or are you envisioning something that is more like what Leighton was talking about, friendly suggestions that wouldn't actually be rules?
I mean, that's, I guess, up to, that's part of the work session, right? Is, we're just kind of making some recommendations, and it's up to all of you to figure out how it's going to be.
But
I know
you
things-
wouldn't have, you wouldn't be opposed to writing these kinds of rules into into an ordinance. It would be appropriate to ordinance them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Those were the questions I had. I don't know if anybody else had questions from that. Email.
I thought the email was really very helpful. I really
Great.
appreciate it. I had that same question though, I about the 14-year-olds.
Mhm.
But to me, a code of conduct, and as to Leighton's point, is telling people how they should behave. And a lot of this is learned behavior, but particularly, the kids at school learning that you can't, ride double file. You have to give an audible signal before you pass someone, things like that.
Mhm.
Having those rules in an ordinance doesn't necessarily mean that I would think that the police officers are going to be standing on every corner giving out tickets, but rather it's telling people these are the rules
Mhm.
and you need to follow them, and teaching. It's like saying you don't litter. We're not writing tickets, but you're not supposed to do it. And you're teaching like how the behavior is, because it's new. I mean, there's some new, uncharted territory here with all these PEVs, which is exciting because it's a great direction that we need to go in on a sustainable level. But we need to be kind and learn to work with each other. I think your letter just really hit all the points really well, and I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And a lot of you have mentioned some of the same points that we make, but as far as whether it's an ordinance, I'm not opposed to there being an ordinance. But I think it needs to be a little broader, a little bit more allowing for an individual to decide where they're the safest. And not all the roads are, the narrow sidewalks and lower speeds where the user might be, fairly safe in the roadway, especially on the bike boulevards and some of the residential roads. But you also have higher speed roads out further on the ridge. You have hills. People are like very slow going up hills. Even if they're on an e-bike, they might not be using the full boost to assist them. And the cars are traveling fast. A lot of our workers in town are coming in and out when it's dark. So where you have the wider paths, even though they do not meet the standards for a shared use path, it's safer for them to be on. And if they're following the regulations that become part of an ordinance or code of conduct, then it should be safe for them to do so and not have to be in the roadway. So those are some of my points, especially when it's dark or during times when there's a lot of traffic and the speeds are higher and there's high traffic during commuting time and school drop-off time. And I don't want to take
Thanks.
too much time, so.
Yeah. So I
Did
do
you
have a
wanna say
couple, I've finished with my questions for PBAC, but I have a couple of points that I want to make and want my council colleagues to think about. One is
We will get to public comment.
we will. I think it's the wrong thing to do to think about current volumes of pedestrians and cyclists and PEV users on our roads today. Because I think if you looked at how many electric bikes and electric scooters there were 3 years ago versus where we are today, there's been enormous growth, and in the next 3 years, it'll probably be a lot more growth. It'll be sort of exponential. And so, I have real concerns about our 4-foot wide sidewalks and imagining them with more pedestrians and cyclists than we have today. I know, as you all know, I'm a crossing guard. On my way down the hill, I walk down Jefferson's Hill from Terhune to Valley to my crossing post every day. And I am frequently, virtually every day, passed by bicyclists on the sidewalk. They are going about 12 to 15 miles an hour. I have never had a bicyclist yield to me. They sort of, if they're polite, they'll ring their bell and say, coming up or whatever. If they're not, they'll just blast past me. And so, when Leighton talks about a kindness campaign, yesterday was the Jewish holiday, and we think a lot about the Messiah, the Messianic era, when we have this holiday. And I think that the time that you're envisioning, Leighton, when everybody will be kind to each other, that's the Messianic era. And we don't know when it's going to come, but it's not here yet. So, I am just concerned from my day-to-day experiences, and I'm concerned that the code of conduct that we got from PBAC is not cognizant enough of the danger to pedestrians of having these vehicles on the sidewalk. And I understand the concern about danger to the users of PEVs by being in the roadway. But I will also say, I have been riding on Princeton's roadways for almost 40 years, frequent cyclist, and I've never had a bad experience. And by the way, crowded roads are actually the safest roads for bicyclists because the traffic is going slower.
I would never ride my bike on Stockton
I-
Hill.
And by the way,
Go to
I
us.
I've got my new electric scooter. I only ride on the road, but I don't ride on every road. But you can get around town, you can plan your route and get wherever you want to go, generally on safe roads by taking back roads. And so I'm just trying to make the case that this is going to be a compromise. There's going to be some give and take. And I would like to see more consideration given to the safety of pedestrians and encourage people on wheels to use the roadway, because it's not as deathly as some would have you believe, or as you feel it might be, never having been on one of these on a road. So, I mean, if you've ridden on your street, you know it's not a death-defying feat, right? Armour Road is not that trafficky. It's not so scary.
No, but I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. If I had an e-bike under your road, I wouldn't be able to leave because I would be landlocked. I wouldn't
Okay.
be able to go anywhere. So I'm
All
just
right.
saying,
So
to think about it.
So I will, and this is picking up a little bit on what some of what Lori was talking about towards the end of her remarks, which is that I do think we have a lot of wider side paths that are not 4 feet wide. They're asphalt, they're 6 feet wide, 7 feet wide. They're in less trafficked parts of town, so there are fewer pedestrians and fewer bicyclists. And I think that those would be very appropriate as an exception to the ordinance that was drafted that was on the agenda for last meeting. I really agree that roads that are not crowded, that have higher speed limits than 25 miles an hour, are 30 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour roads, those don't feel safe to me. And so I agree, if there's a side path there, even if there's a sidewalk there that's wider than 4 feet, I would support allowing these vehicles on the sidewalks on those roads. But okay. And then I just wanted to give one more data point. I was actually chatting about this with Charlie Tennyson, who many of you know. He's the university's transportation guru, and really a hero to many of the members of PBAC. We were chatting about it at the E-Commuter Fest, and he was saying, we're lucky. He was really torn over the policy that they put in place at the university to ban the scooters except for on the roadways. But he was torn because they have so few roadways, and you can't get where you want to go on a scooter if you can only ride on the roadways. And he said, you're lucky in town. You've got all those roads. It's easy for you to ban your PEVs on the sidewalks because they will have alternatives. They don't have alternatives on campus. And he really felt like these vehicles do not belong on sidewalks, and he was sort of envying us in that regard. So again, I'm not saying I'm convinced of a blanket approach to this. I think that there's a compromise to be had, but I think that it needs to really take into consideration more the needs of pedestrians.
Okay. So any members of the public here or on Zoom want to help us get that balance right? Anyone want to comment? Isaac?
Good evening, Your Honor. Again, I want to speak not as Executive Director of Experience Princeton, but just someone with an interest in the issue. So we're not taking an official policy position. But I do want to make the council aware and staff as well that we do have the #1 seller of e-bikes that has a temporary facility in Princeton right now. And they're working to put a permanent facility, which will be off of the Tulane Yard. So I just urge consideration that we want to make sure that we're welcoming to this business. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Tinica, did you come to opine on this?
Hi, good evening. Tina Coutillo, 79 Dempsey Avenue. How much time do I have? 3 minutes. Oh, okay. So our streets are not safe. My husband begs me not to bike on the roadway in many places. And because I always do exactly what he says, I ride on the sidewalk with him. He does not feel safe. And whenever people are on the roadway, have you ever seen the stats of crashes involving children? It's like kind of all year. And then at Halloween, spike, an enormous spike. So I would say that the only reason why Princeton doesn't have more crashes involving pedestrians or bicycles is because there are so few of us who dare to go on those streets. Like Ms. Pyrone Lambro says, it's scary. And I agree with her. That said, this is going to change because, as you already know, there's more people out there on bikes, scooters, e-bikes, e-scooters, what have you. And there'll also be autonomous vehicles coming our way. They're already on the streets in Houston delivering pizza. So we need to get prepared. And as you know, Princeton is not the only place struggling with this. Many municipalities and even the university is trying to deal with this. And I have to tell you that even in the Netherlands, they are also struggling with, the advent of these faster bicycles and scooters on the road. Now they're talking about, some people are calling for a second bike lane as a solution. But I think, putting us on the street is really not a good solution. Princeton University can do it. Why? Because their streets on campus are engineered to be safe. I once asked Charlie if they tell the people who have to drive there whether they have to behave a certain way. He goes, no, you couldn't do that. It's on the engineering. So I would also like to clarify PBAC's, the code of conduct. We call it the code of conduct. It's just basically a bunch of rules. And it's up to you to figure out how to codify that. You want it to be an ordinance, fine. You want it to be a campaign, like Mr. Newland was suggesting, that's great. You want both, fine. PBAC is just proposing a bunch of rules, which will hopefully help people coexist on the sidewalk. But, we do have to do something, and just throwing up your hands and saying the roads are not wide enough. I'm sorry, you can't do that. Because we bike around all the time. And my husband says, why are the roads so wide here?
Thank you, Tinica. Anyone else in the room? Christine Symington.
Hi, is this volume okay? Yeah. No, I speak not only as someone whose day job is to work with the community partners to reduce emissions from our transportation sector, but I am also a pedestrian and a cyclist, and I do still sometimes drive around town. And I have observed firsthand the increase in use of electric bikes and e-scooters, and particularly amongst our workers in town who use it to get around. It's their only means to get around. And I've come to understand more deeply that we all have a shared responsibility, no matter how we are moving, whether we are walking or we're cycling or we're driving. We have to look out for one another, and we have to take the responsibility for following the rules. So the notion of a kindness campaign or of code of conduct initiative is something myself and my colleagues will help the town to make the norm of how we walk and bike and drive around town to be more of a shared responsibility. So regardless of what regulations or enhanced ordinances you put in place, It's not an either or. I think it's an and also. There should also be an effort to help educate people in our town how we need to share the public rights of way, whether it's a sidewalk or a street. And I also want to acknowledge the hard work that the municipal staff does and the police department does to try to balance all the needs, competing needs of pedestrians and cyclists, and having to keep up with a technology that is gone faster than the infrastructure we have is able to support. So I want to acknowledge how difficult it is to try to balance all these needs. So I just want to say we're here, my team at Stand With Princeton, to help with any type of campaign to get the word out that we all need to share the roads and share the sidewalks. And there's a shared responsibility, no matter how you choose to get about.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks,
We may
Christine.
take you up on that.
We'll take you up on that offer.
Jenny?
Hey, Jenny Ludmer, 33 Caldwell Drive. Just to piggyback off of what Christine said, I would like to see, the map that Deanna was saying that should be in the ordinance, maybe put the bike parking areas on it so that it's not looked as punitive, but rather, bike by whatever means you decide, or scooter to town, and then park your bike in these areas. And that's our pedestrian zone. So I just want to add that thought in. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Anybody else? Okay, Adam, if we want to move the timer so we can see if there's anyone online. Okay, Fabian? Fabian, did you have some thoughts?
Does this work? Sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Yes, I'm Fabian Polo. I live on Grover Avenue. So I'd like to share a few thoughts. So I ride my bike for work. I ride on the streets. I never ride on the sidewalks because I have, it's not leisure. I have to get to work. So time is of the essence. And the main challenge I have is the terrible state of the road. I bike to Plainsboro. So I take Harrison, and you should, try certain sections of Harrison are so bumpy. It can be slippery when it's raining. You have to avoid potholes, which makes it very dangerous for traffic that's following you. So if you want people to ride on the street, you have to fix the roads. So that's the first problem. The second problem I have is for leisure, and leisure is going to involve biking to downtown. I live by the shopping center. I don't know which back roads I can use to go to the shopping center. There is always going to be a section close to the library that doesn't have any back road. So I am biking with my 10-year-old on the street. She's amazing. She's very safe on her bike, but there's a lot of traffic. There are people with trailers. If you want people, again, you have to build the infrastructure before you ask people to not ride on the sidewalks. And I completely concur with, I believe it was the second speaker, that I don't think there is any excuse for not building bike lanes. The streets are fairly wide. They do that everywhere in Europe. The cities are much older. They have narrower streets, and they have managed to do it. And it's one thing I'm a bit disappointed with Princeton is we've been talking about biking infrastructure for as long as I've lived here, and I haven't seen any progress. There was an effort at some point to have a bike lane on Hamilton, and it just disappeared after a few months. And so I think it's kind of disappointing to talk about regulation, to ban things, but I would hope we would think about building infrastructure before we do the regulation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabian, and completely agree about the pressing need for bike infrastructure more than we have. Anyone else online want to contribute to the discussion? Anyone at all? Okay. Anyone else? David?
Yeah, I just have one point that I wanted to make, that I forgot to make before, which is around the equity concern, which I think Leticia was mentioning some concern about. Again, I just want to emphasize, we have more economically disadvantaged residents of Princeton who ride regular bicycles or walk to work than ride electric bikes. In fact, I think it's probably pretty rare for them to be using electric vehicles. Okay, maybe not, but I think that the equity impact of having a lot more vehicles on the sidewalk, wheeled vehicles on the sidewalk, could be a larger negative equity impact than asking folks to ride their electric vehicles in the road, especially if they're coming from neighboring towns, because they have no choice but to ride on the roads until they get to Princeton. And then, I mean, it's a question whether they want to get off the road once they're on the safer roads of Princeton, because, you know, if you're coming in on 27 and it's 35 or 40 miles an hour, that's the dangerous area. There's no sidewalk to ride on there. So I just wanted to make that equity point, that I don't think that this is really an equity issue, because the interests of our lower income residents are on both sides of the question, the biking side and the pedestrian side.
Can I comment? So I just wanted to comment that probably the majority of our workers are riding bicycles, the ones that don't own vehicles. However, I know that the goal, including at the E-Fest, I saw some of our workers were looking at the e-bikes as something that they aspire to eventually own. It would make their commute much easier. So just because it's not the majority of our workers are not riding e-bikes, it doesn't mean that that's not what their goal. I also want to add that, as far as to touching on what Leighton said, it might not be like, I don't know if you would call it a drive or the kindness a campaign. I see that already. I've been running a lot, and including as far as I can go. I'm not speeding, so but I do come across a lot of folks on bicycles, pedestrians, even on e-bikes, and we are very I think whether it's written or not, it's just an unwritten rule that we accommodate each other. And to date, I have yet to have an experience where I feel that I'm not safe on running on the sidewalks, because I would feel unsafe running on the road.
Mhm.
And in fact, I do have a bicycle, but like Michelle, I'm not a confident rider on the road. So my bike stays in the garage as much as I would like to really be able to use it more. I just don't feel safe on the road.
I think that's
It's
fantastic
unfortunate,
that
but-
that's been your experience. You live in a different town than I do.
I hope you're both eligible to serve on council if one of you doesn't live here. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you. Yeah, just to feedback on your statement, David, as I look around, especially in the Witherspoon Jackson neighborhood, I would say that a seriously growing number of Hispanic, Central American men in particular are moving about the town of Princeton more and more on electrified bicycles, not pedal bicycles. And what we should understand is that these are their cars. They go everywhere on these bicycles. These are extremely law-abiding citizens, and you will not see these gentlemen riding recklessly on the Central Business District. They're not going to do that. That's not how they roll. And that's my point is that we have to just be careful how we work this, because this is a mode of travel for a great many people. And I think we kind of have solution looking for a problem. And I would just want us to be real careful how we move forward with this, because it impacts and affects a lot of people's lives. And there's a big equity issue in this. Make no mistake about that. And again, my last emphasis is I would love to have our police officers, our law enforcement officers concentrating on making our entire community safe. And that's a big job. And I just, again, let's give the people a chance to solve a problem before we put the hammer to it. Let's try it. That's my point. I yield
Okay.
back.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
one
go ahead.
more thing I forgot to say, which was just to answer our engineering department's 4 questions. Do we support the 2 changes that you're requesting? I absolutely support them. And do we want to
You're
apply-
answering their questions, speaking for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And in terms of the extending the rules for electric, both bicycles and scooters to the no ride zone in the center of town, I absolutely support that as well. So.
Okay, so we still have a very long agenda to get through tonight. I think that this is really helpful because most importantly, we want to demonstrate to our constituents that nothing that comes to council is pre-baked, pre-digested, pre-decided. And this is an example of how we do our work. And you can see we all have variations on a theme of opinions about this, and some things we agree, some things we don't. I don't have the sense that we have reached consensus yet. If anyone feels differently than I do, that we so I think we've done our work for tonight, and I think we will just have to continue trying to find the right balance. And again, with so many issues, I would rather us take more time and get it right than rush into something and then have to go back and change it, which is more cumbersome and challenging. So I would like to wrap up the work session unless anybody else has any pressing final comments. No? Okay, so the work session is closed. Thank you to the public. Thank you to my colleagues. That was really productive. And I just want to say we're off. Princeton is often accused of analysis paralysis. We'll try not to drag this out too long. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have, let's see, 2 ordinances, 2 public hearings, ordinances up for second reading. Ordinance, the first one, ordinance number 2023-28, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning sidewalk access easement on Lot 3, Block 2104. This is a roll call vote, and I would like a motion to open the public hearing. Leighton, David second. All in favor? Wait, well, okay.
No, it was introduced at the last meeting. We don't,
But is a roll call to introduce? No.
it was already introduced. We don't have a roll call until we have the vote on the ordinance. Yeah, but it does,
I just meant it's going to be a roll call when we decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all in favor to open the hearing?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see. Any questions or comments on this ordinance by council members? No? Anyone in the room? Oh, go ahead.
I'll
David.
just comment. This is part of the widening of Witherspoon Lane. It's associated with that. And I think this is, again, stellar action on the part of staff where we had a planning board application that was approved about 6 months ago that was going to put traffic stress onto Witherspoon Lane, and staff jumped into the breach and worked on developing plans to widen and make that lane safe for both pedestrians and motorists. So I'm very supportive of the ordinance.
Yes, I know part of the rationale for that was so that fire trucks could safely have access. I wanted to say that with the widening of Witherspoon Lane, I know puts the tree in front of Delizioso in some peril. I know it's not a mystery how I feel about that tree, but I do hope that we can preserve that tree, which is an old and beloved tree and one of increasingly few in the neighborhood. So I understand the need to widen the lane, but I hope we can make every possible effort to save that lovely tree. Okay. Anyone on Zoom would like to comment on this ordinance? No? Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll?
Yes.
Here.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion to adopt ordinance number 2023-28. David, do you have a second? Leighton has the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any questions or comments on this? No? David?
Just that it's related to the same project. This is creating an easement so the workmen can make the new sidewalk. So again, I'm in support.
Okay, anyone on Zoom would like to comment on this? No? Okay, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Ms. Pearl Lambros,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Sacks,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Carried.
Okay. Now we have okay, so now I'm doing 2023-29. Is this a hearing or an introduction? This is,
You just.
Oh, did I just?
These are the resolutions.
I'm ahead. Very good. All right. Resolutions. So the first up is 23, resolution 23-294, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing an increase to the not to exceed amount for the professional services agreement with Abruzzi, McDermott, Mastro, and Murphy for Labor Council professional services. Do I have a motion to adopt? Leticia, second. Leighton, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Comments or questions by council members on the resolution? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next up, resolution 23-295, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing an increase to the professional services agreement with McManaman, Scotland and Bauman LLC for legal services in connection with tax assessment appeals. Do I have a motion to adopt? David has the first and Michelle has the second. Any questions or comments?
Madam President, just one question is, and I probably should have raised this at the last one, but we're asking to approve something not to exceed, but there's no amount.
It's in the resolution.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Aye.
Okay. Oops. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay. Resolution 23-296, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing an increase to the not to exceed amount for the professional services agreement with Greenbaum Rowe, Smith and Davis LLP for special redevelopment council services. Motion to adopt. David, Michelle has the second. Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, then, the staff has some additional work to do on resolution 23 and 297 and has asked for it to be tabled and brought back. Do I have a motion to table this resolution?
So moved.
David has the first, Michelle has the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Resolution 23-298, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton awarding a goods and services agreement to White Buffalo Inc. to conduct a deer population survey using distance sampling not to exceed 13,000. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Leighton has the first,
Second.
David has the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Comments or questions?
Sorry. Yeah, I had a question. This uses drone technology to do this, or is this something different? Because I know we're looking at getting a drone.
No, this is using distance sampling, which is a different methodology than the drone count. It's something that you have been using usually every other year. There were some questions about the accuracy of the drone count that was done over the winter. Some pretty serious questions. So the purpose of the distance sampling would actually be almost to compare to the drone count, not on a number by number basis, but just to look for correlations, see, where, for instance, if the drone count had a very high count in a particular area of town, the distance sampling comes up with sort of the same spike. It starts to give a greater measure of confidence in the results of the drone count.
Okay.
So it's just really two
Okay.
measures.
Thanks for the clarification. I know we want to do something with drones at some point. So yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, resolution 23-299. Resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing a professional services agreement with Arcadis US Inc. for construction, engineering, administration, and inspection services in connection with the mini system number 35 sewer rehabilitation bid for $287,000. Motion to adopt? Leighton, Michelle has the second. Any questions, comments? I'm just going to comment that every time I see a motion, a resolution to spend money to upgrade our sewer, I am excited. And thank you, Deanna and Andrew and all our staff and way to go, all of us moving forward to fix our sewer. This is great. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 23-300, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing site license agreements with Crown Castle Fiber LLC for 7 locations: Olden Lane, Thanet Circle, Shady Brook Lane, Ewing Street, Edgerstone Road, Franklin Avenue, and Elm Road. Do I have a motion to adopt? Michelle has the first and Leighton has the second. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, in reading the memo, I had a question about where we were getting 4G and where we were getting 5G. So I reached out to Dan Weisman and he said, actually, at this point, it's all 4G enhancements, but with the potential to upgrade to 5G in these locations. So.
Michelle?
So I was just going to make a comment that I thought it was interesting that all but one are just Verizon. They came to the hearing when we had the hearing. And so just saying, let's see whose cell service gets better and improve with this. So
Well, at this point, I'll believe it when I hear it. So,
I have dropped calls all over the place.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 23-301, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton to accept the NJDEP and Natural Climate Solutions grant in the amount of $552,000 for reforestation and native planting in Community Park North, and to authorize the execution of a grant agreement. Motion to adopt. Leighton. Michelle has the second. Any comments or questions?
Can we just, I'm always excited to accept grants. I don't know if Deanna and Jim want to give us a little about this, but this is wonderful to help our natural resources.
But you can thank Cindy Taylor for all the hard work that went into this one.
What's that, Jim?
You can thank Cindy Taylor for all the hard work
Oh,
that went into this one.
Cindy. We
So-
just, yeah, that's great. Was that her farewell gift to Princeton before she left? No, that's
She left us a lot of gifts.
That's
You'll be
wonderful.
seeing some
She
others soon.
was, yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment in reading the memo. I was super interested to find out that this area was not native growth, that this was actually a planted area from the 19th century. And also comment that I used to hike there quite a bit. And after a couple of the storms, Sandy and Ida, just amazing the percentage of trees that came down because of those storms. And because they're not, they're not native, they're not the right trees to be in that location. So it's a really interesting project and I'm enthused about it too.
Great. Yeah, very, very exciting. Thank you, Cindy. We miss you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Resolution 23-302 of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a contract in the not to exceed amount of $110,767 with, I guess that's Charles Winner, Chas Winner, Inc., DBA, Winner Ford of Cherry Hill under New Jersey State Contract 88215 T2102 vehicles, trucks, class 4 utility dump for the purchase of a 2024 Ford F450 truck outfitted with a dump, rack body, salt spreader, and step flat. Wow. That is
The
impressive.
Swiss Army knives, that's trucks.
Motion to adopt.
Sure.
Leticia, David has the second. Any questions or comments?
We're expecting a bad winter this winter, huh? We've got a lot of snow plows we're going.
Clearly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Resolution 23-303 of the Mayor and Council of Princeton extending a contract with Gen Electric, Inc. for traffic signal maintenance services for 1 year, not to exceed the amount of $42,040. Motion to adopt. Leticia has the first, Leighton has the second. Any questions or comments? I have a question. Can these people address the issue with the traffic signal at the corner of Terhune and Harrison, which does not work?
In what way does it not
Because
work?
I may consider withholding my vote on
The
this
short
in
answer
protest.
is yes, they can address that signal.
What's the long answer?
I have asked them to investigate it and there's actually nothing wrong with that traffic signal.
Well, then clearly these people don't know what they're doing. But, all right.
Is
as
it
a
just
vote of
the-
faith-
Is the cycle just too long? What's wrong with it?
You sit at the light. I mean, I've timed as long as 16 minutes and I've driven around in circles and it's just to see. And
I
then,
wonder why it's only your side of Terhune that has that
well,
problem. 'cause
I
never
have
have the
wondered the
problem.
same thing.
It's interesting. It's green for my.
You can't register on the camera. You have your invisibility cloak on the car when you drive
That's-
there.
Yep. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. see. Resolution 23-304 of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a contract with General Sales Administration Trading as major police supply utilizing New Jersey State Contract 17 Fleet 00760 for law enforcement firearms equipment and supplies. Motion to adopt. Leticia. Leighton has the second. Any comments or questions? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 23-305 of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the award of a contract to Mobilease Modular Space using the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, number 65 MCESCCPS Co-op Contract ESCNJ 20-20/21-43 for modular buildings, purchase, repair, removal, rental, and installation for $342,239.20. Motion to adopt. David has the motion. Leighton has the second. Any comments or questions?
Could we just get a brief of what this is about?
I think this is the sewer, right? The sewer.
Is this part of the?
Yes,
sewer?
this is a triple wide sewer trailer, otherwise known as a modular office. The current trailer, single wide that they're operating out of, has experienced some damage from storms, is leaking, is not really a very good place for them to be working out of. So this purchase will it has built-in capacity. So as we look to the future, staffing needs for sanitary sewer maintenance, as well as our storm sewer maintenance, there is capacity for this new modular office to accommodate that staff growth.
Great, thank you. Anything with the sewers, you've got me there.
That's at River Road.
Correct.
Road.
That's at River Road. It's in the parking lot area where the existing trailer is. It's already an operational area. It's not in the rest of the site that we still need to map and determine how much is usable.
Okay. And just on a related note for my colleagues, we did discuss in INO last week the challenges with getting access to River Road. And I was pleasantly surprised to hear that, in fact, we do have year-round access to River Road, despite even when there's flooding from it's Herrontown
Herrontown
Road.
Road, yeah.
So something for us all to think about in terms of which operations we want to move to River Road. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. Consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an item?
Sorry.
Okay. Motion to adopt the consent agenda. Michelle has the motion. Leighton has the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And fortunately, we have David here to make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any?
Anyone?
Leighton.
Leighton. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are done. Yay.